Yo, what is good everybody? My name is ZSG and welcome to my first FPL video that I'm doing on YouTube. In today's video I am just going to be reviewing some of the prices that have been announced over the last 2 days, going from the first reveal all the way to the last one. And I'm just going to be giving you my initial thoughts and players that I think might make it into my team and might not. So if you do like the video and you are new, please subscribe and smash that like button. And without further ado, let's get into the first player. So the first player that we are going to be looking at today is, of course, the one and only Erling Haaland. He was the first reveal that was announced yesterday, and he's coming in at around 15 million, which I'm on the fence about his price range. I feel like 50 million, yes, it does him justice. He's on penalties, he scores a lot of goals in probably the best team in the country. And I'm not a Man City fan, but from the previous 4 or 5 seasons, and since Haaland's been there especially, he's been there for 2 seasons, and he's been one of the top scoring FPL players in his time. I feel like 15 million is a good price for him, but it's also going to limit other players that you can go for, as we'll see later on in the video due to some of the price ranges. So it's going to make a lot of people think, do they go with Haaland in game week 1 or do they go without Haaland in game week 1? I'm going to be making a couple of drafts to see if I want Haaland or if I don't want Haaland. And then it'll probably be the day before the deadline that I actually make my decision of whether I keep Haaland in or not. My initial draft will have him in and see what I can build around that. But I wanted to know your thoughts as well in the comments. What do you think of Haaland's price at 15 million? Do you think it's justified, or do you think that's way too much and he should have come down from last year? So next up is three players that were revealed together. You've got Taylor Howard-Bellis. You've got Leif Davis and Ricardo Pereira. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about all three of these. I don't know that much about them. But I think if you are looking for a 4 million defender just as a filler and a bench player to maybe come off the bench if you've got a player injured, I think Taylor Howard-Bellis is that guy to go for. By the looks of things, he is going to be a starter for Southampton. Now, yes, Southampton might not have the best defensive record, but as a 4 million defender, and you know he's going to be a starter, or if he is going to be a starter, I think he will be. He will be a good one to go for. The next player is Leif Davis, definite starter in that Ipswich side. Last season for Ipswich, he was extremely good, playing on that left-hand side, I'm pretty sure he plays. So chances are he gets forward, he potentially gets you some assists. But at 4.5, I think there are probably some other more marquee defenders and defenders with a lot more experience than he has in the Premier League that you could go for. But again, if you want in a fullback just to fill in, that he could be one to go for. And the next one is Ricardo Pereira. He's played in the Premier League before. I'm not a huge fan of him. You might think differently. Let me know in the comments. But he's not one that I'll be going for at all. He plays at right back for Leicester. Leicester, I hate to say it, they're probably going down again this season. They've only just come back up. I can't see them having that good of a defence. So yeah, he's the one that I'm going to be avoiding. But let me know what you guys think in the comments about him, and we'll get onto the next players. So next up is two players that I've changed position for this season. They've changed from midfield to attack, and that is Kai Havertz and Richarlison. They were both midfielders last season, and towards the end of the season, they racked up quite a few points. I think Havertz from game week 20 got something like 130 points. So that's in an 18-week period, and that's pretty good for Havertz. Like, I know last season towards the start he wasn't too much of a goal scorer, but when it came time for him to step up, he did. And I think that's why he has been changed to a forward for this year. So you've got Kai Havertz coming in at 8 million. We'll start with him. So I think that's a brilliant price for him. I think he was 7.5 last season, maybe 7. So going up to 8, being a forward, I think that's okay. But if you want the likes of Erling Haaland, Ollie Watkins, Alexander Isak, you may not be able to squeeze him in, so you might have to take a hit there and maybe go for somebody like Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard in the midfield role instead. But I think at 8 million, if you want in a budget striker, he could be one to go for. So say you want to say you are going for Haaland, put Kai Havertz next to him. You've got two decent players there. That comes to what, 23 million for two attackers. You can then throw in a 4.5 million one and focus on the rest of your team from there. The other one is Richarlison. He's coming in at 7 million. Now, I'm not a massive fan of Richarlison personally. I always feel like he's too inconsistent, and I'm not sure what his minutes will be like in that Spurs team. Especially like they've got Werner who can play through the middle. They've got Son who plays through the middle for time, like from time to time. I do feel like Richarlison will next season be a bench player, so he is one that I'm going to suggest you avoid. But again, if you're wanting to play just to bring in, just so that he's there, and it cuts a million out of Havertz's price, doesn't it? So if you're in Haaland and Richarlison, you can then strengthen in other positions of the pitch. Just there is that risk that Richarlison may not start every game, but in pre-season he may show that he's playing really well. He may start every game in pre-season, and then that may be something to think about. But personally, he's not going to make my team. But let me know in the comments, out of those two, who would you rather go for? Would you rather go for Kai Havertz, or would you rather go for Richarlison, because he is a little bit cheaper? So just let me know in the comments, and then next video I can get to it, and we can discuss then. So let's get onto the next players. So next up are two budget midfielders. They're both coming in at 4.5 million, which is looking like it's going to be a good price with how high some of the other prices are, and we'll find out later on about how high some of them are. But if you are looking for a budget midfielder, these could be two to look at. So you've got Hudson-Odoi from Nottingham Forest, and then you've got Semenyo from Bournemouth. So we'll start with Hudson-Odoi first. Um, in that Forest team, yes, he'll get minutes. Yes, he may score a few goals, but is a Forest player really the player to go for? Last season, we saw that they were very lucky to escape relegation. They finished, I think, 17th, which was just above that relegation zone, and they weren't scoring too many goals. With having Hudson-Odoi, I'm not sure if they brought him in this season. They might have done. Like you'll have to. I apologise for that. I've not really done my research on him. I know he used to play for Chelsea and he was decent there. Whether he can do the same at Forest, I'm not sure. But for a budget midfielder who will most likely start games, I think he is one to keep your eye on, especially during pre-season to see how he is playing. Then you can make a decision from there. The other one is Semenyo. He plays for Bournemouth. Last season, I thought he was really good. He scored some really nice goals, but he is more of a bench player, um, from the looks of things. This season, he could step into it and become a first team player, and he could be the better one to go for 5.5. But again, you would have to look in preseason. I will be doing more videos throughout preseason based on every team to see who's starting, who isn't starting, who's playing well, who's not playing well, so that people can get a feel for the teams. But I would say Semenyo is more of the one to go for rather than Hudson-Odoi, in my opinion. Because they're both the same price. I just think Semenyo will probably get more goals or assists than Hudson-Odoi will. But let me know in the comments again. What do you think out of those two players? Who would you rather go for as a budget midfielder? Would you rather go for Hudson-Odoi or Semenyo? So let's get onto the next players, and I think the next one might be an Egyptian king. So the next player that we're going to be having a look at is Mohamed Salah. Last season for Liverpool, he wasn't on top form. I think a lot of people know that and can say that. He still racked in quite a lot of points though. I'm pretty sure he was still in the overall team of the season points wise, and coming in at 12.5 million, I think that's the same as last season. I think he was 12.5 last season. He might have been 13 last season. I'm not too sure. Um, but I think it's going to be one of those seasons again where, especially at the start of the season, it's do you go for Salah or do you go for Haaland? Now, I can't get it up at the minute, but fixture wise, Salah has the better fixtures for the first 5 game weeks. They've got Ipswich to start. I know they have Man United in there as the third game, which is the tough one, but other than that, they are some pretty okay fixtures. Whereas Man City have Chelsea to start, and that could be a tough game. Chelsea could be out to make a statement this season, and what a better way to start than by beating Man City in the very first game. So that's another thing to look at. I know I'm looking at prices here and who might go into my team, but I'm also going to be doing future videos about fixtures for the first few game weeks and who are the better players to go for. Um, to me, Mo Salah for 12.5 million, that's a bang on price. I know last season he didn't really show up as much as people might have expected, but with a new manager coming in, a new system, If Salah is to start every game, which again, it's a new manager, so nobody knows in that Liverpool team who is going to be starting every game. But if in pre-season it looks like he's starting and playing well, he may be the one to go for over Haaland to then play the likes of Ollie Watkins and Isak up front, and then you can have a more expensive midfield. Um, so most likely, I am going to be going for Mo Salah if he looks like he's playing well in preseason and starting a lot of games. I will be going for Mo Salah. But I want your thoughts on that. Do you think he's been fairly priced, and will you be going for him, or are you going to be staying clear and locking in Haaland for the start of the season and just going for a few cheaper midfielders, or maybe a few cheaper attackers to then get some more expensive midfielders that aren't Mo Salah in? So yeah, just let me know in the comments, and we'll get onto the next few players. So up next are the first two goalkeepers that were revealed. So you've got Jordan Pickford at 5 million and Bernd Leno also at 5 million. So they've both had a price increase from last year. They were both 4.5 last year, which was a fair price for them. I think 5 million for both of these is. I expected them to get I expected Pickford to get an increase, but maybe not Leno. Um, I think Pickford for 5 million. He is going to be one that I do avoid, um, mainly because if Branthwaite leaves Everton, I think they will struggle defensively, and all signs at the minute are looking like Branthwaite will end up going. Um, so I don't really want a goalkeeper like Pickford who might not be keeping as many clean sheets as last season. He may surprise us. He may keep a lot of clean sheets, and I may end up regretting that decision. But Pickford is one that I'm going to steer clear of for this season. I had him at the start of last season, and it didn't work out for me. And then when I took him out of my team, he started to play well. Um, but yeah, I'm not going to rule him out completely. But as it stands, he's not the goalkeeper I'm going for. I feel like for 5 million, if you are going for a 5 million goalkeeper, there are other ones that are probably better. If not, there's some 4.5 ones that are definitely better value for money to go for. And the next one is Bernd Leno. He's 5 million again. In that Fulham team, is he really worth 5 million? Absolutely not. I would have said 4.5. Lock him in at that. That's fine. If he was 4.5, I'd go for him. At 5 million, absolutely not. I feel like he's overpriced at 5 million. I know it's only up by zero point 0.5, but that zero point 0.5 does make a difference. It means that if you then go for him, you have to go for a cheaper midfielder or attacker because you won't be able to afford everybody unless you take a hit in defense or elsewhere. Um, but yeah, he's one that I'm going to avoid. If you are going for a 5 million um, goalkeeper, there are better ones coming up, especially Emi Martinez. I know that's later on in the video, but Emi Martinez is also priced 5 million, and I think he is better value for money, especially with the fact that Villa have now brought in Matson, who's a good left back, and defensively, I feel like they will be a lot better this season. I think Martinez will be the one that I go for personally. So both Leno and Pickford being priced at 5 million doesn't affect me. But I want your thoughts in the comments again. Are you happy with their prices, and will you be going for one of them, or would you rather them be a bit cheaper so that you could go for them then? But we'll get on to the next players, and we should be getting to a couple of juicy players soon. So next up are three players that I really, really like the look of for this season. So you've got Christian Nkunku, Solly March, and Pedro Neto. So I'm gonna start with the best, which is Christian Nkunku. I think 6.5 and him being in midfield is a steal. If anybody saw him play at Leipzig a few seasons ago, he was incredible. He got something like 37 goals and 11 assists. It might have been more. That could be completely off. I'm not too sure on the numbers, but I know he was extremely good for Leipzig. Last season, he was riddled with an injury all season. He came back towards the end and was looking quite decent. Last season, he was a forward and priced a little bit higher. I think he was 7.5. So to come down to 6.5 and be a midfielder, I think he is a must-have in people's teams. People might disagree with that, but I do feel like Chelsea this season, now that Pochettino has his time to settle and the players are performing for him a little bit, I think Nkunku will start every game. He'll be in more of that centre attacking midfield role with um, Nicholas Jackson ahead of him. But I still feel like Nkunku will be the one to create most of the play. He might win penalties for Palmer's sake. He may score, get assists. He could do anything, and I feel like he will be the cheap asset that a lot of people are going for this year. And I'm very excited to see what he brings to Chelsea now that he doesn't have that injury. And at 6.5, if you need a budget midfielder, he is the one to go for. I feel like at that price, you can't say no. It's in preseason he might not be starting every game, and that could be a red flag that you might not go for him. But if he's looking like he's starting every game, I think you just have to take the risk and go for him. But I want you to let me know in the comments what you think about that price for Nkunku and whether you will be going for him. Um, the next player is Solly March. He had a good season for Brighton. He scored a few goals, got a few assists, had a couple of injuries as well. For 6.5, it's a decent price. Maybe one to go for if you're looking for a cheap asset to get in there. But at 6.5, I think Nkunku is that one to go for. So I'm not trying to steer people away from Solly March, but with a new manager coming in potentially for Brighton, you don't know what they're going to play like. And I feel like for the start of the season, especially, he may want to steer clear off for the start of the season. And if he's looking like he's playing well, maybe get him in at a later date to free up funds elsewhere. Then you've got Pedro Neto. If he can stay fit, yes, go for him. He played really well for Wolves last season. Got a few goals, few assists. But he had that really bad hamstring injury, came back, and then got re-injured, which wasn't good for his career for that season. So if he can stay fit again for 6.5, decent price. That Wolves team looked good last season. They've got the same manager still. I'm expecting good stuff from them. Cunha up front, Neto in midfield, or as that right winger. So you know he'll be getting forward and getting goals and assists. So I think he could be a wild card to go for. Um, Again, out of those three, Nkunku is the one that is catching my eye the most. But if I was to go 1, 2, 3, it'd be Nkunku, then Neto, then March. But I want your thoughts in the comments again. Will you be going for any of these three? And if so, which one? And what's your reasoning? Is it because Nkunku is so good and you saw him at Leipzig, or is it because Neto has that more experience playing in the Prem, and he's going to be on that right hand side? But we'll get on to the next players, and we'll see who's up next. So next up, we've got Bruno Fernandes, Man United player. So at 8.5 being a penalty taker, 8.5 is the same price as last season. That's fairly priced. Midfield, he's on penalties. I think everybody knows that by now. With Man United, Bruno Fernandes is that one to take the penalties. And I feel like attacking wise this season, United are going to be a lot better. I'm not a Man United fan. I am a Liverpool fan. So it would be biased of me to say don't go for him. But I think Bruno may be one that I have my eyes on to potentially go for. Um, again, he's on penalties. He's going to get assists. He's going to get goals. For 8.5, that's a good price if you do want to go for some more expensive players up front. So Bruno could be one to go for instead of Cole Palmer, Mo Salah, something like that. Um, but yeah, I think Bruno, he's got that experience. He's always going to play games. He's going to play pretty much every minute for United. So I think he's a good player to go for if you want to go for him, and he'll be making it into a few of my drafts. And I just want to clear something up from the last section where it was on Kunku. He got around 20, 25 goals in his last season for Leipzig, but overall he's had a lot of goals for them. But so again, Nkunku is a good one to go for. But regarding Bruno Fernandes, yes, 8.5 million, perfect price. Definitely one to keep an eye on to go for. But yeah, we'll get onto the next few players now. So next up are two forwards that have had a price increase from last season. So you've got Jean-Philippe Mateta from Palace and Ivan Toney from Brentford. I think everybody knew these two players were going to have a price increase. We just didn't know by how much. So Mateta's gone up from, I think he was 5 million last season, and now he's 7.5 million. So it's about a 2.5 million increase, and it's deserved. He had an excellent season, especially towards the end of the season. He was getting hat tricks, braces, assists, 4 goals in some games. So definitely a good player to have a price increase, but maybe not the best one to go for at his price now. I think 7.5 for a Palace attacker, especially. There are better attackers that you could go for. I mean, if you are just wanting as a budget, so say you are going for Haaland and you want if you're wanting a Salah and Haaland draft, Mateta could be one to go for as your second striker, 100%. But at the same time, Havertz is only 5 million, is only 0.5 million more expensive, and in a better team, potentially more goals, more assists, could take one or two penalties if Saka's not on the pitch. You weigh up your options there. Again, Mateta's one to keep an eye on, but isn't one of the definite, yes, I have to go for him. And the same with Ivan Toney at 7.5 million. I feel like last season he was banned for a lot of the season. He came in at 6 million to start with, or 6.5 million maybe, and went up. I'm maybe completely wrong with that. I didn't pick Tony at all last season because of his ban. But yeah, I feel like 7.5 million. He's one that I'm going to be avoiding just because of his price. Um, yeah, he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. He's an excellent player, but there are other forwards out there that I am going to be going for instead that we are going to be getting to very soon. So let me know in the comments as well. Though, what do you think about those two prices? Do you think they're okay for the players, or do you think they should have been lower? Are you going to be going for them, stuff like that? But yeah, we'll get onto the next few players, onto the next few players now. So next up are two midfielders that going to be good value for money, especially the second one. So I'm going to wait till we get to that second one. So we'll start with Jared Bowen, 7.5 million in that West Ham team. You know he's set to start. He's not on penalties though. That's the only issue that I have with that. Um, but on that right hand side for West Ham, he got a lot of goals last season. He gets assists for 7.5 million. That is a really good price if you are wanting to go for somebody like Bowen. But I'm going to keep this one short because the next player is the same price, had a lot better season last season, and is only going to get better this season. And that is Anthony Gordon. Last season for Newcastle, he scored in every single home game and scored in a few away games. He racked up so many points. A lot of people towards the end of the season realised if we go against Gordon, it's going to cost us. And I feel like I do personally think that's going to be the same this season. If you don't have Gordon, you may end up regretting it. And Gordon is definitely going into my starting 11 no matter who I have. I always feel like with the fixtures that Newcastle have, he's one that I just have to have in my team. He may disappoint and I may end up getting rid of him after 3 game weeks. But for that first game week, I feel like I have to have Gordon just to be on the safe side. Um, again, he had a really good season last season. I just feel like he's going to be 10 times better this season. But I want your thoughts on that as well. Do you think Gordon is going to do as well as he did last season? Or would you rather stick safe with Bowen or a cheaper midfielder and steer against Gordon? But for me, Gordon's definitely going into my team. And yeah, we'll get onto the next players. Onto the next players now. So the next player is a forward that everybody has their eyes on. He scored the winner against the Netherlands for England, and that is Ollie Watkins. At 9 million, that is an excellent price in my opinion. Yes, it's an increase from last season, but not by much. There has been some stuff going around today that he's actually 9.5 million according to the Premier League website. But I'm gonna say 9 million for now. But even at 9.5, that is still really good, and definitely one to keep an eye on to put into your starting teams. With Douglas Luiz leaving leaving Aston Villa, sorry, Ollie Watkins is probably set to be on penalties now. So he's a set starter, set striker, set to be on penalties. He's got all three traits that you really want for a striker. He's literally Erling Haaland, but cheaper. And people are going to come at me for that. I know they are, but it, it's true in my opinion. I just feel like Watkins, now that he's on penalties, he's going to do so much more for Villa, and he's definitely one to be keeping an eye on or potentially getting into your starting drafts, especially for that first game week. I feel like at that price you can't say no because he's only going to go up in price, and then you will end up regretting not having him. And you can quote me on that. And if it comes back to bite me, it comes back to bite me. But I do firmly believe Ollie Watkins is one to go for. But let me know again in the comments. What do you think? Do you think you're going to be going for Watkins, or would you rather just go for Haaland, go for some cheaper players, and be done there? Um, so I think that's it for Thursday's reveals. But we're going to get on to Friday's reveals next. Because there's been some juicy prices. So the next group of players they've all been revealed by the actual teams today. So today is the Friday that a lot of reveals have come out. So we're starting off with Chelsea's reveals because there are some decent players in here. So you've got Nick Jackson there for 7.5 million. But the one that I'm keeping an eye on here is Palmer for 10.5 million. That is a 5.5 million increase from last year, which is it deserved? Yes, he deserved an increase by that much. Absolutely not. I do feel like around the 9 million, 9.5 million mark, I might have been more tempted. I'm not ruling him out, but I do feel like Nkunku for 6.5 million, it's literally what 4 million cheaper, maybe the better option. But you know that Palmer's on penalties, and people call him Cold Palmer for a reason. Um, so Palmer is one to keep an eye on. If I have the budget, I'm going for Palmer. I think that's a no-brainer. But the other interesting one here is Reece James for 5 million. An injury-riddled season last season seems to be every season for Reece James. For 5 million, is he really worth it? Probably not. Will I be tempted? Most likely. Playing right back for Chelsea, you know he's going to get forward as long as he's playing and not injured. I'll I say that I won't go for him, but you know for a fact I'm going to be pulled in. As are a lot of people, I think, for that price tag, people aren't going to say no. But the one here is Cole Palmer for 10.5. It'll be interesting to see what the likes of Saka and Foden are priced, and then people start making decisions. But you know, Palmer is a set starter, unlike Foden, but Saka is also a set starter. So if Saka's cheaper, people may lean more towards him. But let me know what you think. Do you think 10.5 is a fair price for Cole Palmer? Or would you rather be going for some other players who are a bit cheaper as in other positions as well? And we'll get onto the next few reveals. So the next players revealed were Brentford, and there's only one player here that I'm really interested in, and that's Flecken. He was fourth or fifth last season for best goalkeeping appearances. For like most points by a goalkeeper, and at 4.5 million, I think he could be one to keep an eye on. In that Brentford team, again, he's not going to keep that many clean sheets, but last season he got it from save points, and this season he may do the same. So for 4.5 million for Flecken, it's a good budget goalkeeper in my opinion. And if you are looking for a 4.5 million keeper to go for, he seems to be the one to go for. The other one I'm looking at there is Ben Mee for 4.5 million. Again, a budget defender that you know is going to start games. So he could be the one to keep an eye on. But again, I'm going to keep an eye on pre-season, see if Ben Mee is starting, because he is getting on now in age, so they may have found somebody to bring in instead of him. But Flecken is definitely going to be starting every game in net, and I'm going to be keeping a close eye on him to see what clean sheets are looking like in pre-season, to then make a decision on that goalkeeper role. But we'll get onto the next team now. So the next team that we're going to be looking at is Aston Villa. The Villa have some really nice prices coming into this. So you've got Matson, who's a new signing for them. He's a left back coming in at 5 million. People are saying that Matson will probably start every game for Villa, but I'm not too sure with them still having Luca Digne. So it is again going to be one to look at in pre-season to see, is Matson starting and is he getting forward as much as people think he will? That'll be where I make my decision for that. A definite lock-in for me will be Konza at 4.5. I think 4.5 for Konza, he's going to be playing more of a right-back position for Aston Villa this season, and chances are he plays every game for them, and I feel like he is one that I'm going to be wanting to get in, just because of how his reputation precedes him. He had a decent season last season, and I think this season he may do the same, but again, pre-season will be where I notice more. Leon Bailey for 6.5, I think that is. With Diaby potentially leaving, Bailey probably starts more games. If Diaby doesn't leave, he may want to avoid because there'll just be rotation all the time. If Diaby goes, Bailey will most likely be starting. At 6.5, I wouldn't say no. He had a good season when he played last season. So again, he's one to keep an eye on. The big one here is Emi Martinez for 5 million. He's the same price as Pickford and Leno. So Emi Martinez for me, in a better side, better defensive side especially, he is the one to go for if you're going for a 5 million goalkeeper. I can't see any other goalkeeper being more appealing. David Raya is looking coming in about 5.5, same as Alisson. Yes, Edison might be leaving City, but Ortega still isn't worth it that much. So I would say Martinez for 5 million is a definite yes. If not, Flecken for 4.5 and then go for a 4 million. But let me know in the comments what you think of these prices. Will you be going for any of these Villa players, or will you just be sticking with Watkins at 9 million and going elsewhere for your defensive assets? But we'll get on to the next team. I think there's only a few teams left to look at. Yeah, we'll get on to the next one. Moving on to the next team is Crystal Palace. You've got Gahey for 4.5 million, who, for 4.5 million, yes, is a good cheap asset. Is a lot better than Ben Mee, who's the same price. But I do feel like there are other defenders, sorry, for 4.5 that I would be more willing to bring in than Gahey. I just feel like Gahey being a centre back, if he doesn't keep a clean sheet, what are you actually going to get from him? You may get lucky and get a goal, but that's probably it. I am looking at other 4.5 million defenders as well, but Gahey is one to keep an eye on if you are wanting a cheap asset. The big one here is Eze for 7 million. That is a price increase from last season, I'm pretty sure. And yes, Eze had a good season. In that Palace team, is he worth going for 7 million? Maybe, if you want more of a budget midfielder. But I think it depends how you're building your team. If you need to free up funds, Eze could be the one to go for instead of the likes of Cole Palmer, Saka, or Foden. You just drop one of them and go for Eze instead. But I wouldn't be jumping at Eze straight away. I would keep an eye out for other players first to see who else. Because if you think about it, Gordon is only 0.5 million cheaper, more expensive. Sorry, at 7.5, same as Bowen. I feel like Bowen and Gordon for 0.5 million more are a lot more better value than Eze for 7. But let me know what you think in the comments. Is Eze worth it for you guys, or would you rather steer clear? So now we're moving on to Wolves, who we've already seen Neto, who has a good price, but then you've got Cunha as a forward for 6.5. He had a good season last season until he got that injury, which was the same as Neto. So I think if Cunha can keep himself fit, with they have a good manager, and Cunha played really well before that injury, so I think he could be one to keep an eye on if you are wanting a more budget forward to go for. At 6.5, I definitely wouldn't say no. You've then got Ait-Nouri at 4.5 million. Reasonably priced, yes, 4.5 million. Is Ait-Nouri going to start every game? There are rumours that he could be on his way out of Wolves, but you don't really know with rumours how concrete they are. If he's to stay at Wolves, chances are he is a starter. Starting on that left-hand side where he does get forward a lot. So for 4.5, I'd be tempted to go for him. I would need to see the fixtures first before I definitely lock him in. But I think at 4.5, I know there are other 4.5 million midfielders, but Ait-Nouri is definitely one to be keeping an eye on there. And then I don't really fancy any of these three in Sarabia, Dawson, or Larson. Right, I had to look around my screen to see who it was on the other screen. But yeah, out of Cunha and Ait-Nouri, I'd definitely be keeping an eye on both of them. Cunha for a budget attacker, and Ait-Nouri for a definite starter in defence. So yeah, we'll get onto the next team, and I think that we've only got a couple of teams left to look at. So next up, we've got Leicester, who they've only just got promotion. So I'm going to keep it pretty brief. Cordova-Reid played for Fulham last season, had a good season with them at 5.5. Could be a very cheap midfield asset. I had to make sure that he was midfield then, but yes, a very cheap midfield asset to go for at 5.5. It frees up funds elsewhere as well, so he could be one to take a punt at. Vardy for 5.5. He had over 200 points in consecutive Premier League seasons for FPL, but I don't think he's going to be doing that this season. I think that Leicester team could be going down straight away. So I'm not going to be looking at bringing in Vardy. However, if you have the funds, maybe you know he's going to be a starter, so he could be one to be bringing in just as a bench player in case somebody needs to come off your bench. Vardy could be that guy. But it's probably better assets to go for than Vardy. Um, I'm not. I won't be going for Mavadidi, Doku, or Akali. Um, but definitely wants to keep an eye on a Decode Overread and Vardy. Decode Overread, especially, he did good stuff for Fulham last season, and I'm expecting him to do good stuff again um, for Leicester this season. So yeah, we'll get onto the last team now, which I believe is West Ham. So the last team that we are going to be looking at is West Ham. You've got Kudus for 6.5, Ward-Prowse for 6.5, Antonio for 5.5, Kilman for 4.5, and Areola for also 4.5. So I'm going to start off with Kilman. For 4.5, there are better assets to be going for. You've got the likes of Gahey, Ben Mee, Aitnuri. I would rather go for Aitnuri than Kilman personally, but you might think differently. You might think West Ham are going to do really well defensively, and you might want to be going for Kilman. But I'm going to be steering clear myself. Areola for 4.5. If you're looking for a 4.5 million goalkeeper, you're probably between Areola and Flecken. Both of them are equally as good. Areola has gone up from last season. He was 4 million last season, and he was everybody's go-to goalkeeper at 4 million because he started every game. So for 4.5, I'd say, yeah, he's worth it. Is he going to be keeping a lot of clean sheets? Absolutely not. But neither's Flecken. I don't think there's going to be many clean sheets at all in the league this season. Maybe Arsenal will, but you don't really want Raya at 5.5 or 6 million. You want to spend as little on your goalkeeper as possible so that you can then spend it elsewhere. Because that 0.5 does make a hell of a difference when it comes to other positions. But Areola for 4.5 is, I'd say he's worth it. Antonio for 5.5, I'm going to be steering clear. I would rather go for Vardy than Antonio, to be perfectly honest. Ward-Prowse for 6.5, again, he's more rotation. He's on set pieces, but that's really it. I think Paqueta is on penalties. Unless he gets a ban, Ward-Prowse could then be on penalties. So for 6.5, maybe, but if I am going for a 6.5 midfielder, it would be Kudus. He had a really good season last season. Chances are he's a frequent starter again this season. He got good goals, got assists, gets forward a lot. So personally, I will be going for Kudus if I am going for that position. But at 6.5, again, you have Pedro Neto, you have Christopher Nkunku. So again, you need to weigh up your options there and see who is more worth it and who has the better fixtures at the time that you are going for it. But I think out of all of them, Areola and Kudus are the two to keep an eye on. The rest of them, I would say, try and steer clear unless you desperately need to have a budget player in at a position. So yeah, that's it. That's it for West Ham players. So that wraps up today's video, guys. We've looked at every single price reveal from the last 2 days, so that's Thursday and Friday. I do want to know your thoughts in the comments. Are you going to be going for the likes of Haaland, Mo Salah, Cole Palmer, Ollie Watkins? Are you going to be trying to get all of them in? Are you going to be going for one or the other? So Haaland or Salah, Salah or Palmer, Palmer or Watkins. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, let me know your thoughts about some of the cheaper assets that you're going to be going for. Are you going to be going for the likes of Aitnuri for 5.5? Are you going to be taking a risk on Davis from Ipswich? I know he's got Liverpool at the first game, but at that left back, he could be getting forward, and we don't know what Liverpool are going to be like under this new manager. Bruno Fernandes for 8.5. Again, a good value for money asset. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. And let me know what kind of videos you do want to see from me for FPL purposes, whether it's information videos based on pre-season, transfer videos for players that could potentially be coming into the Premier League that you might want to be keeping an eye on. I will be doing squad builders when FPL does fully launch about different squads that I am looking at going for, so keep an eye out for them as well. But I am going to be uploading quite frequently over the next few weeks, so keep an eye out for them. So if you are new, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and until next time, peace and thank you very much.